Welcome to the Erasmus Foundation podcast. My name is Paul Nugent. Are you looking for answers to life and its meaning? Then this may well be the very podcast you need to listen to. In a series of podcasts, we are going to look at the difficult questions of life and apply spiritual knowledge to find out the answers. Hello. Today we are going to talk again with Padina about a serious subject, evil. So greetings, Padina.
Greetings to you.
Well, the first question for you, Padina, is a straightforward one. What is evil?
Well, let me say first of all that evil has existed since very, very early times. It has always been there, in truth. And when we are all created as a spirit, each and every one of us who are living, we are all spirits, whether we're humanoid on the earth or in my land at home, we are all spirits. And when we are first created by God, we say the great mind, contained within us is the balance at all times, a little piece of good and equally so a little piece that is evil. So the potential for us to develop either path is within us. And of course, as we mature in spirit, evolve, we are taught to follow the path of light, as it should be. But then, at times, because it is necessary, deemed so by the great mind, that in coming to the earth to live a life, at times it might be necessary to walk a black path in darkness, because to have been evolved, to have been so developed, so old in spirit, not requiring to take lives on the earth in the future, because we have done all things and been all things and seen all things. It is necessary, therefore, to have taken a life in darkness at times, to know what evil is. Now your question was, what is evil? And really, evil is anything that is in conflict, contrary to the natural law. To go against God, to put it in simple language, to conflict, to contravene anything that is against the natural law, and therefore against God, that is deemed as evil. That is the simple definition.
Thank you, Padina. I think it is very difficult for people on earth to understand why evil exists. So, does it have a purpose?
Well, yes, it does, because, as I mentioned earlier, it is a requirement as deemed by the great mind that spirits should know what evil is, to understand how it works, to understand its aims and what it tries to do and how it tries to achieve those aims. And at the same time, as we learn all these things, we grow in strength. As we are challenged by evil, and if we are affected by it, it requires courage and strength to fight it, to confront it, and to challenge it in any way. And this is why, particularly, this time within your earth is a very significant time in all the many thousands and millions of years your earth has existed. That it is a time which is very challenging and difficult for mankind, generally speaking. And the last few hundred or maybe few thousand years has seen evil develop in strength and purpose, and challenging the light even more than it had before, ever.
Okay. So how would we know if we saw evil? How would it manifest itself in our lives?
That is quite a challenge for people. Yes, if you know, if you come across something that is particular evil, every single person within the earth, even those who do walk a dark path, know very well, very clearly, the difference between good and evil. If something is wrong, incorrect, it is known, generally speaking. You know if you are tempted to ever tell a lie, then you know it. And that is a form of evil, an untruth, a falsehood. So you do know what evil is. But at the same time, to answer your question in a more broader sense, it is difficult at times for people to know if they have met someone who is walking a dark path. Because be assured, evil works well by hiding behind beauty. Now, of course, that does not mean to say that everyone who has a beautiful physical appearance is evil. Of course not. In no way could that be true. But sometimes a person who is dark, who has certain ways about them, may attract others who, because of their naivety, because they do not know what evil is, can be drawn in and attracted to that person, to be manipulated and used, and after a time, of course, then they would come to know how it is and how some people do work a dark path.
Thank you. So let me ask you the question then, Bedina. Who is responsible for evil?
Well, strictly speaking, it is, I would say, mostly it is mankind. Now, of course, some people would answer that question by saying, oh, well, of course, it is the devil. And yes, that could be partly true. Of course, there are spirits who have existed in the past who have done great work in impacting the world and mankind and influencing man's behavior in a dark way, of course. But strictly speaking, at the end of the day, it has been man who makes that choice and goes on that journey by his own desire and his own choice. So that is why I answered that question by saying it is mankind.
And what sort of effect is evil having upon the world, would you say, Bettina?
It would destroy it completely, utterly. It would be a barren wasteland, as your moon is. It would die, very simply. And let me say at that point that your world is out of balance. It is sick. It is in a dangerous state. But it will not die, because there are those in spirit and those within the earth amongst mankind who are working hard to ensure that your world does survive and go forward into a new civilization in the future. There's a lot happening around the earth to ensure that it does survive, that it comes back into balance and God's sanity.
Bettina, how, from your point of view, from spirit, does the world look at the moment?
Well, may I say, we do look, we scan. Many spirits draw near to the earth to see, to scan, to record, to take information back to our land where it is stored and it is recorded. And we see the earth now a little more, let us say, points of light around the earth that were not there in strength as they are now, just some few years ago. But things are changing quite dramatically. And if I was to describe your earth only just a few years ago, as we see it, I would describe it as completely overshadowed with a dark web of grey, with only just a few small pinpoints of light dotted across your earth. The light is growing, but unfortunately this time within your earth has been the most evil that anywhere in the whole universe has ever been. And sadly, that is how it is. That is how it is meant, because man has to learn what evil is, how it works. And above all, it is man's responsibility to fulfill his destiny by overcoming evil, by controlling it, by not letting it have the freedom and the liberty it has taken in recent times.
Okay. So, Vadina, how do we prevent evil? How do we avoid it? What do we need to do as a human race?
Well, that is achieved very simply by every single person within the earth, or as many as possible, coming to understand themselves, to know themselves so well that they understand other people, they know other people, and through tuition and exercises that will be taught to the young in the future, to understand what evil is, to recognize it in others, and above all, to know and to understand what a falsehood is and how it can be recognized in people. So there will be no untruth. And when the earth comes to a maturity, comes to an age when all peoples will know truth and falsehood, falsehood will not exist. And that in itself will overcome evil, will maintain a level of dominance over evil and not allow it to grow as it has done.
You've also spoken in a previous podcast about the collapse of the financial state of the world. How will that change things for us?
Well, it will in great measure, because the currency of evil, of course, is finance, is money, wealth, material goods. And if you take that away, then evil loses its power. Its motivation is destroyed. It no longer has the means to control and to dominate. So that is why that is another aspect of this time that is due to happen, that there will be a major financial collapse around your world, everywhere. And that way, man's toys and the currency that evil uses to manipulate and to dominate will be destroyed and taken away from evil.
Finally then, Vadina, for now, would you say that we are very much on a cusp of change here on the earth?
Very much so. It is at this time within your earth, you are within the fifth civilization. And slowly you are coming to the end of that civilization and to move into the sixth, which will take mankind through to a more golden age of spiritual understanding, of wisdom and knowledge, great advancement in technologies, in medicines, in so many ways, and will give mankind an understanding which will give him a sense of inner peace and contentment beyond what mankind understands at this time.
Thank you, Padina. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close?
No, I would say that one thing to say, that evil cannot persist. The light will always win, because the light is positive, it is good, it is wholesome, it contains purity, it contains truth. And evil contains very little other than destruction, chaos, and really in itself really has no purpose other than to cause mayhem and destruction. So just in that way, the light will always survive and win. It may be a battle, it may be a challenge, and if you consider your history, it does reveal this, how evil has been overtaken and dealt with, but at great cost and with great effort and courage. And that has taught man and every individual spirit who has been within the earth what evil means. One only has to look back into your history to find some understanding in reality what evil is.
Thank you, Padina, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. It's been a pleasure.
It has been my pleasure, and thank you.
The Erasmus Foundation is a spiritual teaching and healing centre based in Laxfield, Suffolk, in the United Kingdom. We have a web page, www.erasmus-foundation.org, or email us info@erasmus-foundation.org. Thank you for listening.